Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Bill Connor, and if you're watching or listening later on, you've reached the Digital Shop Talk Radio. And I'm here today with Frank Scandura of Frank's European Service, one of our longtime supporters and been on the podcast many times, and also Bruce Williams from River's Edge Services, and of course, Uwe, our Chief Innovation Officer. And what we're going to talk about today is the things that either might be changing in the industry that might keep a shop owner up at night thinking about what they're going to do about it, or at least get them tossing and turning. So we're going to talk about these things and how it impacts today's processes and maybe even what tools we might need in the future. So although it's not really certain what's going to go on in the future because we don't have a crystal ball, there are trends that are giving us some clear indication of what's going on. And what we want to do is continue to empower the shops we work with and the motorists to make the right decisions about their vehicle repair and maintenance. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is start down the path. And we talked a little bit the other day about, some trends in the marketplaces. And what we want to do is identify, about 4 or 5 of them, decide what are the top 2 or 3, and then start going into some details. So that being said, let's go ahead and start out with Frank first. And, what are the things that keep you up at night about changes in the industry that you're seeing, or at least get you tossing and turning a bit?
Well, Bill, in all honesty, I've learned how to sleep pretty well. So the things that I do think about is the trends of the government involvement in, what kind of vehicles we should be driving. It's going to be a huge deal. When California says, oh, no more internal combustion engines after a certain time, how are we going to deal with that? Right. And then here's one that that I think of quite often: autonomous vehicles. Will the vehicle bring itself in for service? Will the vehicle tell me what it wants me to do? Will I send the vehicle back home on its own? So that might be the one that's constantly floating around in the back of my mind.
So that's your top of mind one. That's good. So Bruce, let's go ahead and get some feedback from you. What gets you tossing and turning, or at least
can I ask Frank another question about that? When do you expect this is really hitting the independent aftermarket at a degree where we should be prepared?
Now. And I'll tell you why, because there's a lot of companies that are creating these autonomous fleets right now, and they need service providers, right? So, and they're looking outside of the conventional dealer network for these providers. So I think we need to be in a position now to start looking at that and being prepared. How can I communicate? Because there's nobody to call up and say, hey, car number 7 needs a service. We need to be able to have a digital platform, an electronic platform. And I see Uwe's smoke coming out of his ears right now, that enables this, where you just know car number 7's showing up at Tuesday at 2:00 for X, Y, and Z.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with Frank. Looking into the future, autonomous, it's a real thing. It's coming fast, a lot faster than I think most shops expect. Like Frank says, having a network, they can't build and develop their own service network across the country. There's already one in place. We just have to train and educate our people that we can do it. So shorter term is running, I look at it, running a well-oiled machine so you're profitable to be able to pay for proper training for your people and get everybody up to date. So it's not a shock when it comes in. We still see, even in my small town, shops that are writing their invoices on an old school paper work order. And I don't even understand how they're in business anymore from where we've come to, especially partnering with Auto Vitals and just electronic shop management software. So, but you have to be profitable to be able to train your people, to be able to get the proper training, to be available for what's coming in the future. How many computers are in Mercedes vehicles nowadays, things like that. It's crazy. The amount of digital tools we need to be able to diagnose these vehicles. And unless you're profitable and run a well-oiled shop, you can't keep up. It's really difficult. So being partnering with you guys makes a big difference.
So that's one of the ones that we need to go ahead and explore more in depth. Frank, you not only for yourself, but you work with a lot of other shops across the country. What kind of feedback are you getting from them? The stuff that's driving them kind of bonkers. How do we solve this?
Some of the obvious things are qualified help, right? And we've got to change what we do. We have to be, we have to create a consistent national apprenticeship program. Napa's got something out. Mike Davidson put something out. A couple of other companies have put something out, but we need to all get on the same page. There's such a gap and such a divide right now in quality workmanship that it shouldn't be. And, those of us who get those problem cars because we can fix anything, we see, wires cut, tied together with electrical tape on CAN networks. You can't do that stuff. And proper training is definitely missing. So we have to get on the same page on that. That answer your question?
Absolutely. So, Bruce, are you seeing similar in the shops that you communicate with?
Absolutely, in my mastermind group. So one of the biggest things, I actually reached out to them about their challenges. And one of the biggest answers is qualified personnel, for sure. So what I've found that has worked for us is it's a lot slower process, but we built them from the ground up. Really develop our technicians. We fly in a trainer that comes once a month. Costs us a lot of money, but he flies up from Vancouver, and he sits down, we use our facility, and we train on the proper diagnostic process to go through. Doesn't matter if it's the first computer system or the latest, the process works. And the guys have really latched on and taken it. But you pretty much almost have to build them yourself. There's always going to be people trying to steal great techs, but the industry is now, I see a trend changing that it's actually, people are proud to be auto technicians now. They're not ashamed to say, I'm a greasy mechanic. There's a big difference happening, a big shift in the industry that is really positive.
So we'll go into both of these a little bit more in depth. And before we switch off to start dissecting these and what we're going to do about it, Bruce, I know you said you had talked to your 20 group about, these challenges or opportunities that I call them. Did they go ahead and give you another one besides that? And then we can kind of put them in order and start dissecting them.
The only other one that I got that stands out was, especially now with COVID, is government help grants to restart, to get back on their feet if they've had a tough time, which we didn't really experience ourselves much, but it could be a possible thing. Besides that, it was all about technicians finding good help.
And so really we could talk about government assistance more about, will they do anything to help us with the apprenticeship program? And maybe would these be the top two that both you guys are seeing?
I don't know that the government's understands the importance of an apprenticeship program. They understand the importance of getting people to work. And I just recently connected with a gal here in Las Vegas that has a state program that helps people get off disability and back into the workforce, right? Because, maybe the tile guy is disabled because his knees are destroyed from kneeling all the time, but what else can he do? How can we rehabilitate him? So I don't know that there's enough emphasis on a local level. Federally, yeah, the federal government says, yeah, let's do this. But I don't think there's enough emphasis locally. And Bruce, you're in Canada, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And Canada's got a really good program. You cannot just work on cars unless you're properly trained and licensed. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Right. And in the United States, you can take any jamoke off the street, give him a wrench and say, go put brakes on that car, and not have a clue that if he's ever done it before or if he's doing it correctly. And that's got to be frightening for people. Right.
And we do have a bit of that problem as well. We've got great standards and great programs, but again, some guy can just start a shop, and if people are willing to take their car to him, besides he'll have nothing to back him up if anything happens because he's got no license or anything. But yeah, it's possible to happen for sure.
So Uwe,
really educating our customers.
So Uwe, before we start dissecting these, do you have anything that we've collected internally that we've seen going on that we need to go ahead and talk about in this list before we start going into some greater detail?
Yeah, I would love to put on the list how digital interaction has changed, digital communication has changed motorist interaction, and where is that going to go? And as a separate topic, maybe two topics. One is we see a clear trend to multi-location owners, and it's not a franchise system, right? So why is that? Where is that going? And the other topic is the focus on process and helping with digital tools to create a repeatable process, and more importantly, monitor it, was, in my opinion, one of the trends in the last 3-4 years. And it's not just digital inspection. Where is that going? To what degree does an independent, what are the challenges, to run a smooth operation? Because we haven't solved everything yet, I'm sure.
Awesome. So it's fair to say, in my assessment, that all of these items are going to take some innovation. So what I'd like to do, because Uwe is our Chief Innovation Officer, why don't you go ahead and choose one, and then let's go ahead and dive in and dissect, what is the impact on the shop today and in the future, how it impacts the end user motorist, and what processes or tools might be needed. So if you want to go and choose one, then let's go ahead and get these guys to go and open up and give us some information.
I would love to start with the technician shortage and the qualification and education. It seems to be something, no matter what shop you are, where you're located, that keeps people up at night. And it's interesting, to me, often independence, the name means I'm the lone wolf fighting for my market share in my location. I cannot recruit anymore because there's nobody to recruit. And how the network of independents now can come closer together and build a foundation for the future industry, right? That seems to be, there are so many organizations out there, but it doesn't seem to help and to create an apprentice program which is carrying the weight it should. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think it kind of ties in together with being multi-location, right? Some guys just don't want to. They said, I like, going into the office at 7:30. I like turning on the coffee. I like doing this. And that's fine. But here's what's going to happen. You're not going to be able to attract true talent if you don't have a path of advancement for them, right? I think the days of just coming to turn wrenches for 4 or 5 years before I move on are gone. I think we need to truly provide careers for people. And I think that's what's missing in our industry. I was talking to a young man yesterday, started out his career as an automotive technician, and his mindset was, I don't want to be a mechanic for my whole life, so I'm going to go to school and do something else. And that's kind of the problem. There's nothing in the future for them. So if I can't generate $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 million in sales a year, I can't afford to do what those young people are looking for. Today, they want flexibility. They want to know, I don't like getting up early. Can I come in at 9 and work till 6 or 7 or 8? Well, can I provide that? No, because my head's stuck in 8 to 5, 8 to 5, 8 to 5, 8 to 5. So what do we need to do as an industry to change and adapt to what the needs are for the young people now that can come in? So I could start you off as a tech, here's general service. We're going to get you trained. And if you can learn to diagnose, and then you become a diagnostic specialist. And then look, I've got 4 locations. I'll need a shop foreman over here. Then I'll need this position over here. Then you're going to get to a certain age. We're going to have you teach the other people. And, what does that look like? And then providing retirements and things like that for their future. I think it all kind of ties in together. I don't think
That's
you're
awesome.
going to.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to truly attract the best people if you're doing $500 or $600 a year and just kind of, happy making 50 grand a year as an owner. I just don't think that's a good plan for the future.
So if you're defining a career path is what we really need to do in the digital shop, because that's where everybody should be, in the digital shop environment. As a complete success solution, do we start out by defining roles and roles that might have some overlap initially, but as you grow a defined role, so we might have an inspector, an estimator, a technician, a appointment booker, and so on. So Bruce, do you have specialized positions in your shop? And is that a way that we need to start thinking about going, not just focus on technicians, but an overall career path into automotive industry, all the way from cradle to grave, so to say?
Right, yes. Well, we just implemented the production manager. So we have 3 service advisors. Production manager gets to oversee it, make sure all the steps are being done in between them and the techs. And then with the 6 techs, one of them is a lead tech, of course, shop foreman. But I can definitely see, like Frank was saying, as growing, there is a need for these guys to see somewhere that they could advance to, for sure, just like in any career. And multi-locations or expansion can create that. Like Frank says, oh, I'm going to need a foreman out here. When I start that new shop, I need somebody to oversee, and you can grow and train key personnel to give them something to work towards. If nobody has a goal or an idea in mind, they're just there punching a clock. When they have something to work for, it completely changes their attitude, their drive, everything. Seeing that opportunity. So we're definitely seeing that. I don't have a parts department specialist yet, but I think that is, I'm already finding that's something where we're losing some efficiencies. Definitely. We're fortunate enough, our parts delivery in this town's half hour, 45 minutes at worst. So it's pretty good, but in some locations, I imagine, Frank, you probably have to wait 1 hour to 2 hours sometimes for parts.
Yes.
And all big centers. So that kind of stuff being right on top of the digital process. And like you were saying, it's not just digital inspection, Uwe, it's the digital process from start to finish, which really ties it all together. Sure, we can all do inspections. There's tons of other platforms, but the way it all brings it together with the whole process, the drop off, the setting the tiles in the right position, estimating, the ordering parts, or waiting for approval stages in the process, really define who you can be and what you can produce in a day is what I find.
So the staffing really has a huge effect on the shop, especially when it comes to cost. Cost of these employees is going to be a lot higher. The investment we have to do in them is a lot higher. So, what are some of the things that has to happen in the shop to go ahead and be able to get the customer where they're willing to go ahead and pay for those additional costs that we're absolutely going to have to charge?
Bill, can I go back to the technician thing,
Sure.
if that's okay? Because we kind of now do a transition from technician to overall digital process. And I think there's one thing where I had a big aha moment just a few weeks ago, and I want to share that with you. One of the Auto Vitals shop owners approached me and said, do you offer equipment and teaching for schools? And so there's a technician college in Ventura. They release, it's a 2-year program. They release about 160 people per year to the automotive field, right? And there was the question of, are we willing to help in teaching them digital inspection and maybe process, right? And the reality became the following. A big OEM sponsors this school with $400,000 a year and basically takes a clear impact on what is being taught. And out of those 160 students, 80 were already interns for those dealerships of that OEM. Half of them, right? The other I cannot remember the exact numbers, but another 40 were with other OEMs in internships, and the rest was interning at a few independents or working at Home Depot. Right. So that to me showed if there is not a clear path, we talked about career path in the shop, I think we have to start where they get the excitement to working in that profession. If there is no apprenticeship program which starts locally, and maybe the Auto Vitals network can do anything there. I mean, we have a few shops in the network, right? Or working with Napa or whatever, right? But that is very clearly to me a shortcoming that the OEMs have seen where it starts and invest there. So how can an individual independent, and the answer is probably not much, but how can a network of shops have a similar leverage?
It's good.
You know, what are ideas to get there, right? And how can Auto Vitals help?
The first thing the independent shops can do is they could stop going ahead and talking so bad about themselves and others in the industry, where we don't look so ugly to everybody.
I don't know that that's as big a problem, Bill, to be honest. I think there's more good operators than not, but I think the bad operators get all the press.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So Frank, Bruce, what do you think would be a good step in that direction? If you agree with me that this is a highly important thing to do, to go outside of your shop walls, so to speak, right? And engage. And how could we help if, you know, magic wand?
I think working together is the first step. I know over at Transformers Institute, we're talking about creating some buying power with all of the shops in our network. And I think this branch into the school system is a logical step that should be added to it, you know. And when I show up at a school board meeting, or not a board meeting, but, you know, advisory board, you know, for the automotive classes, and I did that for a few years, and all the big shots from the dealerships are there, you know, just tell me when to stop, just like you said, you know, with the money. I can't compete with that alone.
Right.
But as a group, we can probably make a difference. And then as a group, if you can even tie it all in together with a company like Auto Vitals, it's a national company, then it gives us, the rest of us, some credibility. So I like your idea of giving $400,000 a year to local schools.
But what I also see, there's a beauty about independence which is unrivaled. That's the proximity to the community, whether that's location wise, but also be part of the community, right? That, in my opinion, that's a leverage which is unparalleled. No OEM can say that, right? No local dealership can say that, because, to be honest, local dealerships are not local anymore. They just have a location and have to serve 50 miles radius, because the consolidation of the dealerships to make money leads to that consolidation, right? So there's customer service, proximity to the local community is incredibly important and not leveraged in this particular case, right? So maybe you don't need 400,000, maybe 50,000 is enough, but you're part of the local community and make a difference.
And maybe it's not even about money. Maybe it's just about involvement.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
How can we help? What do you need? Boots on the ground kind of help.
Right. Because so that's thank you for saying that. To me, the most, and we had that with Napa, but it didn't take off. if you are a local shop and you use Auto Vitals DVI, you're willing to be available as an instructor for your local school, right? And if you do that, Auto Vitals gives the equipment for free to the school, right? That was an idea where there's a win-win-win in this, right? So building a network of Auto Vitals users who are willing to go to their local school and say, hey, I spend X amount of hours per month in helping in instruction of future technicians would make a huge difference.
Does this need to start earlier though? Is that, simple things sometimes work really well, like putting together a career path description and getting it to the schools for their guidance counselors to start talking about in the freshman,
Right.
sophomore, and junior years?
No, I agree with you, but there's a chicken and egg problem. You can talk about it, but you have to have some evidence, right? Hey, look, we did this over there and it worked out great. And talk to my buddy over there I play sports with, and he went through that career, right? And look where he is right now, right? So we have to start somewhere, and I would do that in parallel. Is what I'm saying. The more evidence we have that it works for the shops, the more we can reference it.
And then as we get these younger people come into the industry, stop treating them like shop cleaners and so on, and actually start using them to develop a career path. Because, in the OEM, that's a real common thing. They go to the trade school, they go to the OEM, they go ahead and do warranty work only, mop the floors, do whatever, and then pretty soon they're out of the industry because they're burnt out.
So are you saying the apprentice program also has a kind of curriculum a shop owner signs up for? So there are certain things the apprentices should experience in the shop. Otherwise, they cannot be an apprentice in that shop. So there's a skin in the game aspect of it where the industry is helped as a result.
And so the tendency is, absolutely, and the tendency really is in the industry, and I actually participated in a forum the other evening on this exact topic. The tendency is to focus 100% on technicians only, which we all need technicians, but they don't go ahead and talk about any type of other program for service advisors, parts people, dispatchers, and so on. So, those people seem to get left out on the outside, and we only recruit people into them past when they can't bend over the fender anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, my recruitment lately, I just hired 2 new young service advisors to help with all of our work that we have. And they both were completely blown away that an automotive shop runs how we did, because their mindset is they just think it's a mechanic shop and they just got to answer phones. As soon as they see all the system procedures we have in place, the light bulb goes off and they see a career here, because there is advancement, and there's targets and goals and all kinds of fun stuff. And they couldn't believe automotive shop runs like that. So I got instant buy-in from them. They're loving it, having a great time.
So we should use that and have a little video and go to the schools with that. Right?
Absolutely, a complete demo video shows the process of every person that we can log in and run a fun recreated demo and show them what it's all about and what it's like, customer experience side of it and everything.
Right.
Would be fantastic, and light bulbs would go off. It wouldn't be.
And contrast that with how it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, right? And see, how different that is now. And there's a real career, and it's not just grease monkey image, which is probably stuck in many of the young people's head.
Absolutely.
No, so as far as tools needed, then what we need to work on then is working on defining a career path and the roles inside the digital shop environment, and then put together something that can be brought to these different schools and stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And recruit shop owners who are willing to go to the local schools to get involved, right? And equip them with that material. And the video is probably not the only thing.
That's right. Like somebody chatted, have a local BDG of all your shop groups, and then start there, start growing the digital inspection, and then start growing into the local schools. And, you know, really, we all can grow at the same time.
So
this would be.
I see also another trend, and I don't know, I have no statistical evidence, but schools save money. And there used to be schools who ran an auto repair shop, right? Incredible. I don't know of any right now, right? So they save cost and energy. And so when we say local schools, is it high schools? Is it technical colleges? Any vocational school? All of the above?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah. You need to generate interest at the high school level.
Yep.
You know, my grandson just graduated with honors, 4.35 GPA, and all these accolades, and doesn't really want to go to college. Maybe I'll go to trade school. Okay,
Right.
good. But he's never had any exposure to that up until right now. So he doesn't really have a direction. So I think, you know, you start percolating those ideas like we used to do in the past, not back when I was in school, or put this kid in the, you know, mechanic class. He's no good for anything else. And I think that's part of that needs to be part of the path, starting that far back.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm trying to imagine that, how that will work, there's also a clear portion of it which needs to show how the development from purely mechanically controlled cars to now computers on wheels happened, and how that changed, and how the motorists changed too in their expectations, right? There are trends which can be made a platform for that video showing the job has changed completely. The only thing which is the same as, you know, still a local business, part of the community. But the way it works has so many aspects changing, and that makes it very attractive for young people.
So this would be great to go ahead and summarize this topic a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, Uwe, and then we take it over to the Facebook forum and we start collecting some information from the other 4,000 brains we got over there that really need to participate on this topic.
Okay, hopefully I get it together.
This is going to be a
the
good
job.
one. This is going to be a good one.
So we need to organize a network of shops, shop owners, managers who are willing and enthusiastic about teaching the next generation of not only technicians, but staff members in the shop in the particular roles. So we reach out to, so I would see that as an auto vitals job. Reach out to them, find a group of people who are either already active or willing to do that, and then discuss what material they need to be equipped with to create the excitement. And maybe we start with awareness. To Frank's point, right?
Awareness is the number one step in the problem, that's for sure.
Right. And create an excitement for, hey, there's a career I never knew existed, right? And then once there is a groundswell and we go to any type of school, and maybe the approaches for each school has to be a little different. You know, I can imagine that approaching a high school and approaching this college in Ventura I was talking about is probably different. And then if we could excite shop owners to sign up for let's call it a digital shop apprenticeship program, right? Where there's kind of a, some framework for the curriculum clear, and then become instructors at the school, and in return get apprentices and do that nationwide, or
Yeah, do it.
including Canada. That sounds like a feasible thing and not just an outlandish idea.
And if we
Agree.
think about this with the motorists in mind, right now, if we don't do this, the motorist is going to have a lot of things happen. The prices are going to go up. The ability to get their vehicle fixed in a timely manner is going to go completely away. And they're also maybe even potentially being forced into having to buy new vehicles all the time because they don't want to, keep that vehicle 13 years plus, which is what they're doing now. So there's a lot at stake for the motorists also. And, if we keep them in mind in this whole process, I think we can be successful. So we could take that to the forum. We've all got some things that we can do on that. So let's go ahead and dive into the other one on there. And actually, this is a good segue because what we talked about in the technician really has got the root of coming from the technology and the other things that we talked about. Bruce, if you go ahead and start down here as far as the impact on the shop that, we already started a little bit on the technology, maybe, and we'll continue from there.
Well,
I don't know, Bruce, I'm not clear where Bill is going. What do you mean exactly, Bill?
So we talked about the first thing that we come up with that keeps them up at night, and that is the changes of reliability in the vehicle driven by technology, ADAS, telemetrics, and so on.
Autonomous fleet, yeah.
Yep. And so how is that going to impact the shop? And, let's kind of start down that path. How's it going to impact the shop and the motorists? And then what do we need to do to, get ahead of this before it runs us over?
Can I add one more question to both of you, starting with Bruce? In my observation, this transition from mechanically controlled cars to computer on wheels has created an expense, especially for the all makes, all models shops on the diagnostic end, which can break the book, right? So how do you, and all this J2534 has changed the market a little bit. And yes, scanners have gotten maybe a little cheaper, but you pay for a subscription on the back end. But it's not only that, it's also the knowledge about what's going on. And ADAS is just one aspect of it. Where do you see this going? Because I'm scratching my head and say one individual tech might not be able to master that. And again, I say all makes, all models, right? As a backdrop. Is there a mobile diagnostician future here? And there are companies who are doing this already. Or is that, limited to certain aspects of the car only? Programming, reprogramming stuff, where the tools are even more expensive.
Well,
so I want to add that.
Right. There's a couple trains of thought on that. And, I've got a friend in Edmonton, Alberta in my group. He started off as a mobile diagnostician, had his own mobile shop. Now he has his own shop, and he only specializes in certain makes and models and very difficult diagnosis. And that's all he does. He doesn't pretend to do them all. He doesn't want the, odd jobs or whatever. He is just about diagnosing specialty stuff. So there is these trends starting to happen for sure, because it is big. So I guess looking at it from outside, there's a couple options. If your shop is small and can't afford, or is not profitable enough to afford all the training and all the tools to do it, there is an option out there. Or you expand and grow and charge accordingly. I was looking on a forum the other day, somebody was asking if they should actually charge for diagnosis if the person gets a repair. Of course you should. Who wants to go to work for free? Like, if you don't charge for the diagnosis, how can you afford to buy the tool to diagnose? Like you can break it down as simple as possible, but profit's not a dirty word. Many people get in this industry and think they can't charge because they have an emotional bank account, but you have to be profitable to buy the tools to train your staff to do it. And like you said, with ADAS coming in for everybody and the multi-platforms, we have to do it. Like we just bought another 2 tools the other day. We just have to. But if once you're profitable enough, the decision is easy. If you have to think about, oh my God, I need to buy one more iPad for a guy, I don't know if that's possible. You've got other issues you should be working on to start with.
You've got bigger problems than the price of an iPad.
Absolutely. Yep. You know, my guys come to me, start saying they're acting really slow, battery time. I just boom, order 3 more, get them on the floor, and let's get going. Move forward. Implement. I'm an implementation king. Get it done.
So are we talking about specialization within the shop or within a group of shops, or, you know, where do we see the industry trending?
I say it a little differently. I see, we have a couple of mobile guys out here, and you know, when Frank's gets to a point where they're looking for outside help, the mobile guys are like here, right? And what I see as a trend, and what I see happening more and more, is a centralized programming and assistance model. Autologic's doing some of that right now. Again, you know, we reached their capacity pretty quick, but I see that a true centralized, qualified, step by step. Let me log into your computer. Let me see what you're seeing. Put this probe on that wire. Do this, do that. Okay, let me see those, you know, the oscilloscope patterns that you're seeing. Oh, look, there's your glitch, right? That kind of
remote, right?
Remote,
centralized meeting,
centralized remote. I think that's going to be more the trend. You know, the days of, you know, let me check your car out for free have got to come to a grinding halt for the reasons Bruce, you know, said. I just paid not too long ago, I think it was last year, my subscription for my Mercedes-Benz entry scanner, $16,000 for like 3 or 4 years. That's $300-something a month. That does not give me access to the website to download the documents and gather all the other information. I got to pay for that separately. So, you know, the days of using a generic scanner to look at a car, these cars are getting too complicated and things are happening very quickly. It's just not going to be enough anymore. Another note, we mentioned this yesterday or the other day, was FTC came in and said the manufacturers have failed to demonstrate why they should be the only ones allowed to fix their products. And it's telephones and it's computers and it's automobiles, and it all falls under the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act of 1974. And you got to look it up and you have to understand it. You know, it's like, well, that's very complicated. And the FTC basically came out and said, yeah, but there's qualified independent service providers. So we're going to see a big shift in the information allowed to us. There's going to be, you know, quite a few fights in the government over this, but that's going to, I believe, help. You know, that guy's got $10 million to invest in a centralized remote diagnostic capability. And all I have to do is spend, you know, $4 or $5 grand on the, you know, thing to plug in and the screens or whatever. It's going to be a game changer. It really is. I do see that happening in the future. So if anybody knows of anything like that, let me know so I can buy the stock now.
We're transitioning more the same as the medical industry is, because they got, you know, family practitioner, and then they've got hospitals, and then they got surgeons, and they got specialists they go to when all else fails. They got the morgue that does the delivery at the end, which, you know, everybody is, you know, we're trending in that direction. We just need to go ahead and, you know, use some of the business models that have been laid out in front of us for them. You know, they've got, you know, apprenticeship programs and schools and so on, and they start them out at a really young age. You know, when they're crawling, you know, you're going to grow up to be a doctor or nurse or whatever. And, you know, we need to go ahead and adopt them same thought process.
So I think I see where you're heading with this. So a car can come in 3 times for an oil change, for an oil leak problem. And if I can't fix it on the 3rd visit, I can refer them to the oil leak specialist.
It's almost getting to be that way. And if you think about it, we've got quick lube facilities that, you know, they've got things that they're good at and a business model that works for them. But when it gets over a certain level, they have to recommend it to go to, you know, a hospital, which should be, you know, a Frank or Bruce here to go ahead and go further. So we can lose some business to them as long as we know that we can gather up them people, their clients and stuff for the things that are actually profitable for us. Although we'd rather do everything from bumper to bumper, realistically, we lose some of them to these other type of businesses. And we don't do a good job of going out and introducing ourselves to those businesses and saying, we can be an ally, not a competitor, and here's how.
So I would like to go back to diagnostic and bring up another topic in that context, which is we believe there are a lot of diagnostic work undetected because only if there's an engine light, people are going to plug in a diagnostic, and it's expensive technician work, and the service advisor is often afraid of selling it, right? So it just gets bypassed. In other words, I believe, I'm not the only one, that there is a today unknown amount of diagnostic work which is undetected. And so I can tell you, because you mentioned AutoLogic, we are doing right now a little pilot project with Opus to enable the detection of this as part of the inspection process and as automated as humanly possible, right? So it just becomes part of your inspection process. It's not diagnosing the problem, it's detecting whether there is an opportunity for the service advisor to present it to the motorist and sell diagnostic work, so the diagnostic technician on staff or somewhere else can actually do the work.
I think that's brilliant, and I'm looking forward to seeing it in action. I'd love the idea of pre-scanning a vehicle before anybody touches it, regardless of what it came in for.
Exactly.
And then having those results available for the technician to do a quick analysis of and go, you know what, these 3 U codes are interesting because now I've got a communication problem. Perhaps I should make them aware of, they should be looking into that,
right,
whatever the case may be. So that's a very important tool.
And to be honest, it's just if you look at the current inspection as a visual inspection, more or less, I mean, it's more than that because we now integrate Hunter and other things, right? And you have battery testers and blah, blah, blah. But this takes it to the level, let's look into what the computer finds and has stored as a problem or potential problem, right? Mm-hmm. And not, let's wait for the customer to see the engine light to come in, or let's wait for the customer to report a concern, drivability or whatever it is, and then diagnose, right?
I always love examples, real world examples. And we had this exact example the other day. We've got a 2017 Cadillac Escalade comes in to diagnose a noise vibration while driving. So while my tech's driving it, the engine light happened to come on. So when he come back, he decided, well, I'll just throw the scanner on it. The engine light came on because it's got a little bit of running rough that happened to do it when we were road testing it, but there was 7 other, like Frank was saying, some U codes and some lane avoidance codes and parking assist codes that didn't, like you said, doesn't turn on the light. Nobody's even aware of it unless it's scanned. So a perfect example of what Frank was saying. Part of your initial is a scan for basic hidden codes, and yeah, then we can direct the diagnostic. Yes, we should do a diagnostic on this. This looks like this is going to become a bigger problem. We'll make you aware of this and give the customer a choice.
So really, this needs to be an all system scan. So this just isn't taking an OBD2 generic scanner and putting it in there. We need to know all the modules, number one. And number two, our service writers need to start conveying this to the customers. These are safety or reliability codes, because you see too many times where vehicles are driving around with TPMS lights and these other lights on, and then the service writer saying, oh, well, you could drive the car without that. Well, the government mandated to be there, so this is a safety or reliability code, and it needs to be addressed. So the mindset for some service advisors needs to be addressed in this picture also. And if we could make it to where the customer gets the information and then comes to the shop when it doesn't get presented and says, I've got these things on, this is safety and reliability on it, can we get this addressed?
And especially if, Bruce's point, what if you had a collision avoidance codes, right? Next thing you know, the car's getting wadded up, and could that have been avoided?
And one step further, which is, well, it was just at ABC shop.
Right.
Maybe they looked at it, and then there's evidence you looked at it but didn't tell the customer about it. Are you actually on the hook for any of this now? So
yeah, or the engine light comes on a day or a week after the shop visit to your shop. Why didn't you find this?
Right. And you missed the pending code that's been there for 37,000 key cycles. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, good. Bill, we have 7 minutes left and we haven't even scratched the surface.
So, I guess to summarize that, if you would, Uwe, what are the tools that we need to go ahead and get to the shop for this? Do we need to go ahead and explore some, maybe taking and working on some inspection sheets that go ahead and have some of these new technology in them that are available to others, working on as a team? Do we need to go ahead and, what are the things that we can do to help in this process? I mean, we can't stop technology from coming, but what can we do to?
In this particular case, if we really talk about diagnostic, it is, we need to find a way where the inspection, as you said, is an all system and gives a health check in the least possible time, because we still have that problem that service advisors might cherry pick and stick with what the customer is coming in for, right? And as Frank famously said, a tech minute is $4.30. With inflation today, is probably approaching $5.
Yes, 472.
472. Here we go. Right, and our job jointly is to find the best process and the tool integration, in this case, with Opus, to make this happen. The bigger topic is, which I had hoped we can get into, is what other elements between drop-off and pickup, or even beyond, need fine-tuning, addition, or whatever, right? New roles like the production manager. It's actually funny, I have to tell you a short story. I went to a collision shop to watch their process, and the guy uses the role production manager like it's the most normal thing on the planet, right? So it's really interesting. So it's not something completely new, right? But so what's more out there? And I don't know, I'm sorry I cannot summarize it for you, Bill, because I feel we need another half an hour to dissect this and see, what we have achieved, but what's still out there. Maybe we have to do it next week or another time. I don't know.
But there's two things that will actually help us in that. One is for people to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, or one of the other places it's on. So that way they can go ahead and continue the discussion, be able to pass this podcast on to other people in the industry that probably need to hear some of the stuff that we're talking about, or go to digital or autovitals.com/radio and click the button on there to go ahead and actually send some information to us, or go to the Facebook forum and continue this discussion, on these two topics, or propose something else related to the things that are keeping you up at night. And, let's start dissecting it and continue going forward.
So can we,
plenty in the industry that keeps people up at night.
Oh yeah. So Bruce and Frank, if you enjoyed this today, I don't know when the next available time slot is, but I would love to continue doing that.
Anytime. Just let me know. And can't find my calendar tab right now, but yeah, just let me know. We'll figure something out.
Okay, sure. We'll coordinate.
Yeah.
Anything the two of you would love to point out which we haven't covered now, and it should be a topic of the next session. I personally, we haven't talked about motorist interaction, so that's
That's a
close
big
to
one.
my heart.
Yeah.
It's would love to go more into it, but I don't want to.
And we really
anything
haven't
else.
talked a lot about the different processes in the shop that have to change
Yes.
on not only the topics we've already discussed, but there's going to be other processes that as we go on into the future that have to be changed.
Absolutely.
I have shops asking me all the time, where am I going to go ahead and get a flat bay that I can go ahead and put all this ADAS calibration equipment in? So, there's all kinds of stuff that's coming out that's going to really drive us nuts.
I think it's too early to start investing in ADAS personally. So we can have that as another discussion. I'll give you my
Cool.
thoughts on it.
Cool.
And we've also got the transition to not only hybrid, but fully electric vehicles.
Yes.
So that's looming on the horizon. So, we've got enough topics. We'll never run out of them. We just need to go ahead and understand, what's the change in the shop's going to be? How does it affect the motorists? And what processes do we need to change? And the tools that are going to be necessary, especially in our digital world as a complete shop success solution. How do we get ahead of the curve and make sure we stay there?
Yep.
And then there's always telemetrics too.
Right.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
that stuff. Yeah. Uwe knows a little bit about that stuff.
My favorite topic. Actually,
Yes.
not anymore.
Not anymore. It used to be. I would love to see us get back to the device plugged into the OBD2 connector that we
Okay.
communicate with the car. So let's go in that direction.
Okay,
All right.
cool.
Great meeting,
So,
guys.
I'd like to
Thank
thank
you
both of
very
you for
much.
joining. You always got a lot of wisdom that you share, and we look forward to doing it again real soon. And again, I'd like to encourage people to go ahead and download the podcast, share it with somebody that's out there that may have the same opportunities for improvement that you do. And also Digital Shop Talk Radio. We've got, I think we're up to 120 something episodes in there. And there's a lot of great wisdom there from a lot of shop owners just like you.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. It was great. And I'm always
There was.
available.
Awesome.
All right. Have a great day, and let's all go make some money.
Be well. Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.